All right. Welcome back to the show. I've got a special guest. We're going to be talking about, does God exist? Are there any reasons to believe in God? What's the deal with atheism? And I have Tribulette on the show. I know he's got a channel called Now That's Debatable. Feel free to check that out. And yeah, I kind of wanted this to flow organically, but like I mentioned before the show, my voice is a little raspy. I think I'm dealing with allergies. Been on the road for the past few weeks. So as I told him, my atheist guest, I think the Lord's given him the upper hand here. So he has a little advantage on his side. But yeah, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, man. Glad to be here, bro.
Yeah, no, glad to have you. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say because I know you're streaming as well on your side.
Oh no, I got nothing. So I'm actually not streaming. I'm recording on my side.
Okay.
Is actually what I'm doing.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Well, then yeah, to just kind of get started, for people to kind of get to know where you're coming from, who you are. So you mentioned something interesting before the show. You said that you watched my debate with Matt Dillahunty. That was on The Soul back in 2015. And you said that when you watched that, you were a Christian at the time.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about that in general, and then how you got to where you're at.
Sure. So, well, the way I got to from Christian to atheist, it was basically it was through studying the scriptures. I was in grad school at the time, and I was doing my master's in public policy. And not only that, I was a very reformed minded Christian, and I had not only just a reformed theology, but I had a reformed vision of politics as well. And the I guess the this reformed understanding of government that I had in my mind when I started reading the scriptures, I was seeing actually that it really doesn't match. Main things, I had huge problems with Romans 13, and I kind of struggled with it, and so I put it down. I stopped looking very deeply into governance in the scripture because I was afraid that I was actually going to turn away from Christ. So I just stopped on that for about 6 years, and it was kind of bothering me. And I was thinking, if Christianity is true, it is going to demonstrate itself, regardless. I'm going to my studying into politics or any field of study. When I look at that in scripture, it's going to bring me to Christ. It's not going to come out to be a lie. And so that is, I at that moment I decided to just um, study it, and without any, I guess, without any like reluctance of leaving the faith. And eventually I came to the conclusion that what parts of the Bible was saying about government was wrong. And what I didn't realize was that I had to change my epistemology, my epistemic approach for the scriptures. I stopped accepting everything that it says, because what I used to the way my approach used to be that I read the Bible, when I see an error, the error had to be in me, and I didn't realize that I actually had kind of flipped that on its head. I saw an error, and I thought the error was actually in that. And then once I started doing that, about as I continued studying the scriptures, I would see something else that didn't make any sense. I toss it aside, like that's wrong. I do it again, and it kept happening again and again. And like a week or two later, I was an atheist. It was very quick, very quick.
Interesting. Yeah, if I can just kind of touch on that. So you said you change your epistemology, but it sounds like you're saying more like you change your hermeneutic, maybe, because your epistemology would be how you come to know or believe something.
Hmm.
But I guess I'm a little curious, even thrown off. I like to say, in that. So from your perspective, you're a believer.
Hmm.
You think Scripture doesn't line up, therefore God doesn't exist. Help me make those connections.
Oh no. So when the scripture wasn't lining up, what I'm saying is I changed my, like you said, my hermeneutic approach, sure, but like I was saying epistemology as in like the way that I come to knowledge. Like I was also a presuppositionalist, so
Mm,
I presuppose God, I presuppose the scripture, and once I changed my view on Romans 13, I didn't realize that I was changing my view on the scripture entirely. And so once I started reading the Bible skeptically, it, it just fell apart.
So I'd like to stick on the you being an atheist, and I don't know how
Hmm.
you define that. I know atheists have some odd definitions, I'd say these days.
Yeah.
But how do you go from, like, let's grant what you're saying? Okay, scripture doesn't seem to make sense to you. How do you go from that to, well, there must not be a God?
Well, so I first I it was just a rejection of scripture, and I thought maybe there could be a God. I just don't know who that is or how to reach him. And
I
then I
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and then it got to the point where I started questioning whether there's a God at all, and I realized I didn't have any reason to believe in that either.
So I'm always interested in talking to people who were professing Christians and then left the faith, and especially being Reformed and a pre-sup.
Hmm.
It's already two strikes against you. No, I'm
Hmm.
joking. No, I have friends that are both Reformed and pre-sup, but yeah, I disagree with both those views theologically. But I guess let me put it this way: if God existed, would He have existed before Scripture was written?
Yes, well, yeah. I mean, the way the scripture defines him, yes, he would have.
Okay, so how would a Bible with things that you don't think are true, how would that lead to the conclusion maybe there's no God?
So what I'm saying is the way I started my my epistemic approach to the Bible, it changed my approach to all religious answers, including God. And so instead of me presupposing that any sort of conflict between me and the scriptures, that the error must be in me,
Yeah.
I no longer looked at it that way.
So
And
maybe I'll
so
have to.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, I was gonna say maybe I should rephrase my question because I can understand perhaps how someone with a presuppositional mentality take that route, but okay, stepping out, you're no longer presuppositional, right?
Hmm.
In that approach. So, just from the question I asked, how then would you have to? How would you reconcile that? Okay, let's say the scriptures are flawed. You're no longer presup, right? So now, in your state of mind, how does that lend to the idea that maybe there is no God or there is no God?
Well, what evidence would I have of the God? So that's how I approached it, because I was no longer presupposing God. I now
Yeah.
approach the God question and the Christian question like I approach any other belief. And so,
So
in the lack of evidence, I just didn't believe.
right. So, but I still, to me, it seems like a leap to go from that, from okay, maybe the scriptures are wrong, to well, maybe there's no God. It is your only was your only evidence at the time that God existed was that scripture is reliable.
I was never rationally convinced in a belief of God, right? So I was indoctrinated in
Okay.
that belief. Like my father was a pastor. Now he's like a traveling minister, right? So like I grew up in a my family was Christian. My brother, he was a Christian rapper for a little bit, and he's still rapping now. He's doing some other stuff, but like I mean, like I grew up in that, and so but I never actually had good reasons to believe,
But
and
did you never like question as you were growing up? Like why just believe what you were told?
what lack of evidence.
No, I'm saying why didn't you question what you were told growing up?
I
Well,
guess maybe because I wasn't exposed to it. Like, so the only time that I would actually interact with atheists, it was like vicariously through apologists. They would straw
mhm.
man atheists. They say, "Oh, you know, if they say there's no God, well,
I'm
they
gonna grab
think we
something real
came from."
quick. I'm gonna put you on the screen, FYI, but I guess I
Mhm.
heard you. Go ahead.
Oh yes, they'll say, you know, atheists believe we came from rocks, you know, something like that, right? Like something silly like that. Like I was never, I never actually got to, I never had the ability to be confronted about my Christian beliefs critically. Like if I had ran into, let's say like you said you had talked to you were on Ichabod a few months ago. Like if I had ran into Be Good as an atheist while he's an atheist now, like if I had ran
Mhm.
into him while I was still a Christian, that like he would have been a problem for me. A Matt Dillahunty would have been a problem for me.
Why
You
why
know,
would Ichabod have been a problem for you?
Well, because of the questions that he was asking. Like I never at the time I didn't think like that.
So
So
would it
like,
not? Sorry, go ahead.
well, that was it.
I was going to say, so I don't want to mischaracterize your put words in your mouth.
Hmm.
You tell me if this is an accurate assessment. So I guess you could say you weren't taught to think critically as a Christian. Would that be fair?
As a Christian, yes.
Okay. Because when you mentioned like Ichabod, which for those listening, I've done a couple discussions with him. You can find him on my channel,
Mhm.
Brady. So yeah, I guess the reason I asked that is because, and I've said this before with lots of other past guests, that a lot of doubt and unbelief or deconstruction seems to be based on bad theology, and I'd say bad philosophy.
Mhm.
Because obviously the greatest commandment is to love God with your mind, right? That means your intellect. Now, unfortunately, from what you're saying, you weren't taught that. But I guess now, how would you consider your way of thinking? Would you? Because I would agree everything that you said. I mean, most of what you said, yeah, I'm. It sucks. Sorry to hear that, but that's not something I, as a Christian, would even hold to, in the way you were taught or raised or taught to think. Especially given the greatest commandment is to love God intellectually.
Mhm. Yeah, like now, as like I run a podcast where I talk to apologists like weekly, right? And I engage with some of my friends who are still Christians. I've talked to family members about. I've had tons of conversations. Like I'll talk to Christians about as often as you talk to atheists. And now I see things. I look at things very, very skeptically. Uh, I don't see myself becoming a Christian again. Like I think that there's so much. There's so many more problems now that I wasn't aware of at the time when I first left Christianity.
Do you think there are problems with atheism?
There's no problem with no, not with atheism. There's problems in humanism, but none of those things can be solved with a God. But just like there are problems, just like with any sort of philosophy. There's going to be problems.
What and how would you? Let's start with this too, because so we don't talk past each other. How would you define atheism?
Lack of belief. Just so atheist, non, like the prefix a, non, theist, um, one who believes in God. So non-theist.
So it's actually not non. So atheism would just be without. So without God.
Yeah, no, no, no,
But
no. Theist, as in like one who believes in God.
the etymology is atheos. It's without God.
Yeah,
I
but
find it interesting that atheists, even after they deconvert from Christianity, and I don't mean this, I say take this with a grain of salt, still have bad philosophy or bad ways of thinking.
let's get into it. Let's get into
Let's
the
do it.
bad philosophy of now.
Yes. So yeah, atheos is just without God. So by that definition of atheism, a demon
Mhm.
would be an atheist because a demon, though believing in God, is without him. But yet you wouldn't call a demon an atheist. So I think that there's already, I think the way you're looking at it, it seems uh, convoluted, for lack of a better word.
So the etymology is the history of a word. That doesn't necessarily define how a word is currently used. So if you just Google the word atheist, it's
Right.
just one who lacks a belief in God.
But you were
That's
making
how I'm
the
using it.
etymological argument. You were saying theism. What? So you're using the etymological argument by breaking it
Well,
down to and
well, I wasn't using an etymological argument. I was just telling you what I mean when I say atheist.
right. And that's it's a relatively popular argument and shameless plug. So I talk about
Yeah.
that in my book, how atheists
Okay.
do redefine the word, and it is the etymological argument. I just don't think it works, but I don't want to argue definitions.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's go into
call me
um,
whatever. I mean, you can say poopy head. If that's one who doesn't believe in God, I'm a poopy head. I mean, like it doesn't
yeah.
matter to
So
me.
do you believe that the statement "there is no God" is a true statement?
Um, yes, I'll say like as a fallibilist, yes, I could say that there is no God, just like there is no Santa Claus. But like it depends on how you define that God as well.
Well, I mean, regardless, I mean, given I'm asking you, you can define it however you want, but you
Well,
do hold the belief that there is no God.
well, if I define it however I want, like this is going to be a problem, right? Because like I might just straw man you, right? If
Do you believe in any gods? Let's start there.
no, there
Okay.
is nothing that I believe exists that I think is worth calling a God.
Okay. So you believe the statement "there is no God," correct?
Uh, Sure. I'll just
Okay.
say yes. I'll just say sure.
Okay. What evidence would you have for that belief?
Okay, so I don't believe in a God for the same reason I don't believe in Santa Claus, right? So I don't have evidence that Santa Claus doesn't exist. I've never been to the North Pole or anything like that, right? So like I I I'm without evidence. I'm without belief in Santa Claus. I'm without belief in God.
But that's why I asked
Right.
if you agreed with the statement there is no God, if you thought that was true. Well, that's more than just lacking belief. Now you have a belief that
Right.
there is.
And that's what I'm saying. It depends on how you define that God. So if the God has traits that are contradictions, then I'll say that God does not exist because I accept the law of non-contradiction as an axiom. So it depends on how you define that God. But
Well, given
there is no God that I believe in.
mhm. And you believe that there is no God, right? So I'm asking, what evidence do you have for that belief?
So okay, depending on how you define that God, I don't believe in him. Right. So if you want me to prove the non-existence of something, I
Just
cannot.
evidence.
Yeah, I cannot do that.
You can't provide evidence for the non-existence of something.
So it depends on what the thing is. If the thing, if it has properties that contradict each other, then I'm not going to be able to prove that thing. Unless it has properties that contradict each other, I'm not going to be able to prove that thing doesn't exist.
Why not?
Because I think a rock that's conscious, like a conscious rock, and he could do algebra, right? How could I disprove that? Like I have to be all throughout space, all throughout time. There could be a really smart rock somewhere in the Andromeda galaxy. Like I can't investigate.
What's interesting is I deal with this exact claim as well in the same chapter about the definition of atheism, where you can't prove a negative. So I think this is another instance of bad philosophy. Of course, you can prove negatives. You can prove universal negatives. Now, I'm trying to.
How would you disprove the rock?
How would I disprove
The
that
the,
there is
the,
a
the, the rock that does algebra. How would you disprove it?
well? Before going there, let's and I will answer that. Let's stick to, can we prove a negative? Let's start with that. What do you
You,
think?
you
Yes or no?
you can disprove certain negatives. That's what I was saying. So
Okay.
if the negative has properties that are contradictions, you can disprove that. Like there is no rock that is both a rock and not a rock because it violates the law of
Hmm.
non-contradiction. And I
But
accept the law of non-contradiction as an axiom. Then we can say that thing doesn't exist. But if
let's take a go ahead.
that was the end.
Well, let's take another negative. I'm not the president of the United States. I can prove that. And I don't have to be everywhere all at once. And there's no properties that logically contradict each other.
No, I couldn't prove that.
I couldn't prove that I'm not the president of the United States.
Well, you could prove it to you. You couldn't prove it to me.
Why not?
So when you prove, you're talking about with 100% certainty, right?
Okay.
You're not
So this
talking about.
is
Is that what you're saying?
so I'm glad you brought this up. This is probably the
That's what that
next.
word proof.
Well, no,
Right?
no,
That
proof does not
it-
mean 100%
so
certainty.
well, okay. If we're saying if we can understand it like in a we can know in a fallible way, then sure, you can prove that you're not president. Just like you
So
could prove there's not a rock doing algebra.
So knowledge has nothing to do with fallibility. So it's interesting you brought this up. You're essentially asserting skepticism, which I think is in the same chapter, the next chapter of the book. So it's
So
great. We're going through my book, and you
yeah,
haven't even read it, I'm sure.
but knowledge does have to. So there's a position in philosophy. It's called fallibilism, and that means you
Right,
can accept truth propositions in the absence of absolute certainty.
right, and it's a bad
So,
criteria for knowledge.
right, but fallibility absolutely has something to do with knowledge. It's a criteria of what knowledge claims you can accept.
It is a criteria some people have come up with. I think it's a terrible criteria. How would fallibilism? Well, let me start here. Go ahead and define what you mean by fallibilism.
So the adoption of a truth the adoption of a truth claim in the absence of absolute certainty. That is fallibilism. That's what every good scientist is.
So, can fallibilism be proven fallible?
Can fallibilism be proven fallible?
Hmm.
Uh, so so it's not a fallibilism is not a proposition. It is
It's
not a
criteria.
statement. No, and it's not a statement about reality. It's telling you. It's an explanation of what I'm willing to accept as knowledge.
Right. And I'm asking you if that statement itself or that criteria can be applied to itself. Because if not, then you have something that's self-defeating at best incoherent.
So that criteria has to be applied to propositions.
Criteria are propositions.
But you're saying, you're asking if you can apply the criteria to criteria. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. That's a weird way to use that word. But fallibilism applies to propositions. So if you make a statement, like I can tell you, I told you earlier, you asked me if I was in the army, and I said I was. I mean, I could be lying about that, right? But I mean, you just took my word for it. I mean, I have no reason to lie about that, right? You could research me, you can look up my information, and you could find that out. But perhaps all the internet is lying. Maybe the government just put all that information out there, to try to deceive you or something. Well, what I'm saying is, like, there are certain, if you need proof, if you need 100% certainty in order to accept any truth claim, you're not going to get anywhere. Well, that's what fallibilism is.
So, as I understand, fallibilism is a proposition, statement, criteria, whatever, you have to be able to prove it false in order to believe it or accept it. I don't think that's the case, because then you have to apply that criteria to itself, which would then become self-defeating or inconsistent or incoherent. But going on, so now you're bringing up the question of certainty. Do you think knowledge requires certainty?
No. So
Okay.
if you just Google the word fallibilism, it says fallibilism is the philosophical principle that human beings can accept propositions and have justified beliefs even without absolute infallible certainty. That's how I was using the term.
Gotcha. Well, then my apologies.
If you have an esoteric definition, then
no.
Okay.
I thought you were referring to falsifiability.
No.
Okay. So good. So then we both agree that you can have knowledge without certainty, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's go to your conscious rock illustration. I would say that anything that is going to be conscious would have to be biological, given the nature of the soul. And this is going to get philosophical and theological really quick. Given the nature of the soul, I think souls are persons.
So you said this. You said anything conscious would have to be a biological.
I would argue that.
You say that, but can you prove that?
So, and let me even qualify this.
Okay.
Anything that is going to be physical and conscious, that is going to be embodied and conscious.
Okay.
Can I prove that? Well, depends what you mean by proof, but that would get us into a deeper discussion of the role the soul plays with embodied things, with embodied organisms. But my point is this: given that we agree we don't have to have certainty, given that we agree that I would think we agree that we don't have to be everywhere at once, because the reason I thought you were talking about falsifiability is because you were saying, well, I can't be everywhere all at once, which seems to imply that you're looking for certainty.
Well, so I wouldn't be looking for certainty. That's why I said I'm a fallibilist. However, if I ask you to prove something or disprove something, we have left the realm of fallibility. We are now talking about 100% certainty. That's how I'm using that. So proof and evidence, I use different.
So let's
evidence is going to be about probability. Proof is 100% certainty.
So let's stick with evidence, because I'm trying to hone into one thing without going.
Okay, what that is very different. I would say if we're just going to use evidence, then you could absolutely show that there's not a rock somewhere doing algebra.
Okay,
if that's what we're relying on.
Yeah, let's stick with that. Because initially that's what I asked you, right? I said, what evidence do you have for your belief there's no God?
I think you said proof.
If I did, I misspoke, but
okay.
Evidence.
All right. So for evidence that there is no God, it depends on what God we're talking about. So there's a lot of Christians, I don't know about you, but they'll describe God as being both all powerful and all loving.
Yep.
If by all loving you mean to end all unnecessary suffering,
who defines it that way?
Well, some Christians define it that way, some don't. I had a Christian come on my show and he defined all loving by doing what's best for you, which was a strange definition.
It is.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's all definitional, depending on how you define the properties of that God. And then we can talk about the properties. How do you define those properties? So if you define the God as all powerful, as in the ability to do anything that isn't a logical contradiction, and also all loving, as in the desire to end all suffering, then the existence of suffering would disprove that God. If you object to those definitions, then the existence of suffering may not do that.
Yeah. So I'm a father. I consider myself a loving father. I don't want to eliminate all suffering from my children's lives.
No. Okay. So unnecessary suffering.
Then I guess the burden of proof would be on you to show that there is a such thing as unnecessary suffering.
What's your thing? So if the God is all powerful, all suffering becomes unnecessary.
Why?
Because he's all powerful. So
that doesn't follow.
That means he has the ability to remove any goal that he wants, he could achieve without suffering. There are goals that I desire.
You can do it freely.
Freely?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by freely?
Well, if I want my children to learn and grow, mm-hmm. and suffering is a factor that aids in that growth,
mm-hmm.
then
yes, he can do it freely.
As opposed to just zapping my kid with something, because I think there are some values, attributes, properties, virtues that come from suffering.
All of those virtues that you would be instilled in them through suffering, they could just learn instantly.
Right, but that begs a question that, remember what I said, I think that suffering, that there are some things, some virtues that are obtained through suffering, and that suffering is a factor that plays into the attainment of that virtue.
And if God is all powerful, he can absolutely give you all of those virtues without the suffering. That's what it means to be all powerful. Unless there's some sort of contradiction.
But, well, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying here. Okay. I'm saying that suffering is going to be a requirement could be a requirement for certain virtues.
Even so, in other words, all powerful God.
So let's say, that? So let's say I want my son to be brave. How can you be brave with that when there's no danger around? It seems like bravery requires the presence of danger. Now, could God have created a world where bravery wasn't needed? Sure, but without going deeply, you were a Christian at one point, right? You know about the fall. Mm-hmm. Given the circumstances, situation we find ourselves in, there are some virtues that are obtained through things that will bring about or cause suffering.
I disagree.
I don't see the logical contradiction that an all-loving God couldn't allow suffering, because I guess you'd have to first show why that's a logical contradiction. I don't see where that's at.
So danger may be required for the demonstration of bravery, but you could absolutely be brave in the absence of danger.
I'm not just saying the demonstration.
There are brave people walking around all the time, and they don't have to be in danger. They can still be brave.
Not in immediate danger, no, but the presence of any kind of danger.
Right. But you still say they're a brave person. Like Captain America doesn't have to constantly be getting shot at to be brave.
Right.
He could be asleep. He's still brave.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree.
So, but the danger will be the demonstration of bravery. So, but God could absolutely make the kid brave without danger.
So again, let me be as clear as possible.
Okay.
I'm not saying you have to be constantly in danger to be brave. I'm saying that the presence of danger, whether immediate or not, is what allows for bravery. Would you agree with that? No.
So the presence of danger is what allows for the demonstration.
The possibility of danger.
It would allows for the demonstration of bravery.
So are you conceding that someone can be brave? And I think you've already said that someone can be brave without immediate danger. We agree on that, correct?
You can be brave without danger, period. It doesn't have immediate. You don't even need to add that. I'm saying you do not need danger for bravery.
What about the possibility of danger?
No.
So what would they be brave for, or how?
So
how could someone be brave without any? Like I don't walk into a padded room and people say I'm brave.
That's how
there's nothing that's going to hurt me.
Right. They don't have to know you're brave. But what I'm saying is that would be how you demonstrate your bravery. So if the danger was to occur, you would do something brave. Therefore, you're brave. but the danger does not need to be there. It does not even need to exist.
Right. So I'm asking, how can there be bravery without the possibility of danger?
So that virtue, bravery, so they would have like what can you define what the bravery is? Maybe we disagree on the definitions.
Let's look it up. Let's see what
Okay.
go to Google says. Quality of mind or action that allows someone to face danger, pain, or fear without running away.
Yeah, I say you absolutely have that. So you have the spirit, so you have the quality of the spirit that lets a person face danger, and the danger does not have to be there. But if it was there, he would absolutely be willing to do it. So like,
Yeah.
so this is more about like a kind of like a capability, a potentiality. How
Mm-hmm.
would you react? And you would still have those virtues. Your character would still be what it is.
Are babies brave?
No, I wouldn't call a baby brave. I mean, at least maybe if we like play with our words here, but no, I wouldn't say
Right. So it seems like bravery is going to require the acknowledgement of that possibility of evil.
no. So, well, God wouldn't have a world of just pure babies. Like he could have adults like you and I. There'd just be no danger.
So let's bring in Stelman Smith, good friend of mine. He says, brave
Okay.
is not the absence of fear, it's strength to act in spite of fear. So bravery definitionally can't exist without fear, meaning it can't be obtained apart from something to be afraid of.
That's a cool definition. I mean, I like Oxford definition better that we pulled up from Google. But if you're defining bravery,
It wasn't Oxford definition, but
Google uses Oxford. But
I'll take your word for it.
But what I'm saying is, so here, and this is the important part. If you're going to use his definition of bravery, whereas you need fear to have bravery, then sure. That's why I was saying this is all definitional. Like if you reject my definition of all loving, then suffering does nothing.
And let me also ask, maybe to kind of move in a different direction, but on the same topic, what is wrong with suffering?
Well, my position is that if it's unnecessary suffering, then you are harming somebody's well-being for no reason. Like somebody's well-being is being harmed like for no reason.
So you look like you work out. Do you suffer when you work out?
No.
Is there pain caused to your body when you work out?
There's pain, but I wouldn't call that suffering.
Okay. No, fair enough. So there's pain. Now, some may experience suffering, right? Do you think you're more virtuous than someone who does not work out because they don't like the pain or they're afraid of the pain?
Yes. I would say I'm more disciplined because of that reason. I'm more disciplined in that specific area.
So I think you already see my point. There are some virtues that are obtained that some people won't obtain because they don't have that quality to obtain it. They can develop it, but they don't have it.
The discipline that I have, if God is all powerful, he could give me that discipline.
Then I think you misunderstand the definition of discipline, because how can something be disciplined if you don't have to work for it or work toward it? I think by definition, I'd have to look it up.
I would have the best discipline because it came straight from God.
Yeah, but
it'd be something that I didn't earn. It's from God himself that he just gave to me.
Yeah,
I much prefer that discipline.
Right, but that seems like a God who wants you to be lazy, and I don't think God wants.
No, it's not laziness. I am
laziness.
No, God, no. So if God is good and he's all loving, he's not going to make me lazy. He's going to make me disciplined. He's going to make me strong. He's going to make me brave.
You're missing my point.
Okay,
that is a bad lazy approach, if you will, to obtaining something virtuous. I think the very obtaining of something virtuous is going to require some things that you may not like. But that's what also differentiates people. Now, if you're saying, I know you used to be Reformed,
mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is spilling over into your atheism, but if you're saying, can God just cause everyone to believe and do a certain thing? There's no free will, no working out your salvation with fear and trembling, with no,
I don't
there's none of that. Right. Yeah, I know. And I'm sure that'll come up in a little bit. But my point is, you're doing an internal critique, right? Because we can go to the free will in a little bit. But if you're doing an internal critique, then you have to critique it as a whole. And as a whole, God wants us to be able to go through these things. God allows these things because it brings about certain virtues. Now, all I hear you saying is If I don't like that God does that, why can't he just do it to me without me having to obtain it? Well, then you're not doing the very thing that the scripture is requiring you to do.
No,
I
no,
know
no,
you
no,
don't.
no, 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 no. So I'm not saying that I don't like it. What I'm saying is it would contradict my definition of all loving. Because
And why should we accept your definition of all loving?
well, you don't have to, but what you were asking, what would disprove a God? And I was giving you the criteria. Depending on how you define that God and how you define those properties that he has, you could disprove him. So if you can reject that definition,
Right. In other words, the
that,
burden of
that is
proof would be on you to show that God would want that God would want to eliminate suffering, and that suffering is quote unquote unnecessary. But if what I'm saying is correct within the Christian worldview, then what you're saying is not correct. So you're rejecting a certain view of God, but wouldn't it be the Christian God?
well, no. So there are plenty of Christians, and they have come on my show. There was one on it last week. Well, I was on his show, and he was absolutely saying that God is all loving.
Oh, I
And
believe God is all loving. I don't
right,
accept your definition of all loving.
okay, and that's fine. But there are absolutely Christians who would accept the definition that I gave them
Could
until
they
I
be
started.
wrong?
Oh yeah, they could be wrong.
Yeah. So
I mean,
Christians can be wrong about something just because a Christian believes it doesn't make it Christianity or biblically based.
sure. Sure, but we're talking about which God is biblical. We were talking about which gods you could disprove,
Okay.
and
So
it's all depending on the definitions we use, and
so
accept those definitions.
sure. So far we've established that you can disprove the existence of a God that I don't believe in and that Christians shouldn't believe in. What other evidence would you say that you have that there is no God?
So I can create some other God that also has contradicting properties, and I could disprove him in the same way.
I'm not sure if I
I
follow
could
that.
if there's a God, there's an all powerful God who has the desire to get rid of all oranges. The existence of oranges would disprove that God. So, but
No, that doesn't logically follow.
it
Just
does
because
follow.
God has the ability to do X, but X is still around, doesn't mean therefore that God doesn't exist.
No, no, no,
I
no,
don't
no.
see how you got that.
No, no, no. I gave him two properties. He is all powerful. He has the ability to do X, and he has the desire to do X. So there's a ought, right? Like I already gave him a value in the premise.
You're you're saying that because you used oranges, right? I'm trying
I
to
use
stick to your
oranges.
analogy. You're saying in this hypothetical world, God ought to get rid of oranges?
Yeah, that's what would follow because I put a value in the second premise. So the first premise, God has the ability to remove all oranges.
Mm-hmm.
And second premise, God has the goal of removing all oranges.
Mm-hmm. And, and you're
That
using oranges to replace suffering, right? So we're back to that.
no. I was just you asked about what other God could I disprove, and I'm saying it is all definitional. If you're saying like Jesus, for example, the God you believe in, right now, I couldn't disprove that God. So unless I could, you talked about him further, and I could um like identify some sort of contradiction in his existence. But if we don't do that, then I couldn't possibly disprove that God.
Well, we're just
But,
asking for
but
evidence at this point, right?
oh,
And by the way, Stillman chimed in again. He said, if you are arbitrarily determined to have certain qualities, those qualities can't be virtuous by definition. Virtue requires choice in spite of the temptation to do opposite. Stillman's cooking tonight. But yeah, you don't have to
ar-
respond to that because I know we moved past that.
arbitrarily
But
determined.
welcome.
That's a okay. That's the weird way to start off a sentence. To me that sounds like a contradiction. What?
And he goes on, God wants virtuous creatures. If you prefer, we just be pets that are made happy all the time. I don't care. I'm glad you aren't in charge of the universe.
I mean, so okay. if being in a suffering free universe where all good things happen, I don't have to worry about kids being raped and murdered and wars and starving to death and all that kind of stuff. I'll absolutely be a pet. I don't know why you would exchange the awful things that happen in this world just so you can not be a pet. To me, that is just a very selfish, very egocentric point of view.
So
I would absolutely be a pet if
what
it
do you
meant
think
ending
of?
suffering.
Well, I'm tempted to say. I mean, I can see where that comes from your Reformed theology. If by pet you mean causally determined, I would disagree with that view of Scripture and Christianity. Though
Mhm.
again, I have lots of Calvinist friends and precept friends. But I mean, heaven would be free of all that, would it not?
Yeah, and yet there's free will in heaven.
Absolutely.
Right, and
Mhm.
that's why I don't want to talk about other Christians on the show, but there's Christians who they'll say stuff like they said this on my show, that the reason why God allows sin is so we can have free will, and it makes no sense because there's no sin in heaven, yet there's free will. Like there's no contradiction in it. But
That makes perfect sense to me. So
well,
I'm not saying God allows sin so we
you,
can have free will.
you're the first Christian that I've ever met to agree with me on that.
But we should talk more often.
Okay.
So absolutely. So I mean, I'll let you I'll let you take it where you want to take it. But here's the analogy I like to use in heaven, because so far it seems like it's just, which I get from atheists a lot. It's almost like, I don't like that God does this. Therefore, what? That it doesn't follow. Therefore, God doesn't exist. It doesn't follow. Therefore, that's evidence against him. It's stating one's preferences aren't evidence that a God doesn't exist. Right? Going to
Yeah.
heaven. Go ahead.
Well, you don't think you're Shaw Man an atheist? I've never heard any atheist to start off an argument with, I don't like the fact that God exists.
Right. I'm rewording it to say that's what I'm hearing. Because
Okay,
I mean,
that's not what they're saying. Like no atheist would say, I don't like the fact that God doesn't exist. Like they're not an atheist. Because not liking God or not liking the existence of God is different from not believing in the existence of God.
so let me
You're not an
rephrase.
atheist.
Let me rephrase. It sounds like some atheists are saying this if this concept of God is true, I don't like it for X, Y, and Z reasons. Therefore, I don't believe in this concept of God. One's preferences isn't evidence that something doesn't exist. I don't like that mosquitoes exist and bite me. Doesn't mean they don't exist.
That's a fact.
Um, so going to the heaven aspect, because I think this also gets into the suffering part, because you're essentially asking, how can there be, it's usually posed this way. Well, if we have free will in heaven, how will God prevent another fall? But what if it's the case that heaven is comprised of people that went through certain things on earth that have, in a sense, shown themselves to be faithful, so that when they get to heaven, they're going to be the type of people that won't want to sin. And here's what I mean by that. When I get to heaven, or let's talk about now. Right now, I have the free will to go outside and eat a pile of dog crap. Right, I have that freedom, but I don't. Why not? Because it's utterly unappealing to me. I find it disgusting. Well, imagine now, if you will, that in heaven and in God's presence, sin becomes like a pile of dog crap to me, utterly unappealing. Now, the convicting aspect, of course, is that the reason I still sin now is because I don't find sin utterly unappealing, and that's something that convicts me. Point being, though, is that if people who make it to heaven are the type of people who will find sin disgusting when they're in God's presence, well, then you have free will and people who freely choose not to sin. There's no logical contradiction there. There's no problem with that there. And these are the type of people that have shown themselves to be faithful while here on earth. So I think it makes perfect sense. I think it makes logical sense. It's a satisfactory view that gives the consistency and coherence of the Christian worldview.
So, well, people who find God disgusting, right? And you had I think you compared this to you could go out and eat dog crap, right? And you wouldn't want to, right? Because you find it disgusting. Did you
Mhm.
choose to find dog crap disgusting?
Um,
No. The answer is no. Like
I mean,
your
people who
physiology is
have,
structured in such a way, like you're not going to like feces. Like
sure,
it just
but
doesn't work that way.
well, a few things. There are people who eat it, maybe claim to enjoy it. We don't have to talk about those people.
Okay, yeah.
But second, you're arguing the analogy, not the point of my analogy. The point is not whether or not I freely chose to not eat feces, like feces rather. The point is whether or not I freely choose to do so.
Right, but so what I'm saying is, you didn't choose, like, you didn't choose what you find and what you do not find disgusting. So whatever
Oh,
trait,
some stuff I
whatever,
do, yeah.
I disagree. But and we can get into that, like, on the free will part. But what I'm saying is,
Sure.
like, the part of my character, the part of my nature that would find any particular thing disgusting, God could just remove it, and he could, and then I would now love that thing.
Why do you want a God that does everything for you? Are you like that with your kids?
No, like, I don't want the God to do everything for me. What we're talking about
Sounds
is,
like it to me.
no, if God wanted to put everybody in heaven, and there were certain people who had character traits that wouldn't enjoy heaven, he could just change the character trait, and
Well,
now
that
they
sounds.
would want to be in heaven. They would freely choose
Why would he
to
force
be in
someone to do
heaven.
something they don't want to do?
He wouldn't force them.
Well, he would
It
force
would
their will. He would change it. It
no,
would
he
be,
would
to me, that's like a spiritual
no, he would
break, if
change
you will.
he would change a part of their character where now their will would desire him.
Right. So he's removing free will, right? And he's making people do what he wants rather than what they want. And I say again as respectfully as possible, I think that's part of the Reformed Calvinism kind of spilling into now your atheism. Sure, if there is no free will, then yeah, God can make people do A, B, C, and D. But if God has given people genuine libertarian freedom, then no, he's not going to do that.
I don't believe. I think that's an incoherent concept. That I do not believe in any free will. So it's hard to even.
Did you freely come to believe that?
No, I did not.
So why should I believe you?
Well, because I could give you an argument for why it's incoherent.
But if I'm already determined to not believe you, why even waste your time?
No. So you'd be determined because you have a mind that will follow a logical structure. And if I present that to you with the conclusion,
not if I don't have free will. If I don't have free will, I'm not following a logical structure. I may be determined to believe I'm following a logical structure, but I'm just following the determinism. There's no necessary logical structure.
You're putting the wagon before the horse.
Yes,
like it will be determined by the logical structure. So okay.
No, logical structures don't determine anything. On determinism, there is no logical abstract things don't determine.
Right now, I'm in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Washington, D.C. is in the United States. What country am I in?
U.S.
Did you freely? Was that your free will that got you there? No, it wasn't.
What? Of course it was.
That was deduction.
Yeah, using my free will to think, to analyze. In fact, thinking, deliberating requires free will.
No,
otherwise
why would that require free will?
Because otherwise you're a passive cog in a machine of determinism. Because because quite frankly, if you were determined to believe that atheism is true because a grapefruit is orange and the square root of 2, you would think that is logical. If you were determined to believe that's logical, you would call it logical structure. But here's the problem with determinism. You have no way to justify or verify your beliefs if everything you believe is determined, including the belief that your beliefs are true.
So
it undercuts rationality.
No, so beliefs and rationality is justified through rules of reason. You have.
You're missing the point, though.
I don't. How did I miss the point?
Because if you're determined to believe that a certain law of logic proves your point or concludes a certain view that you hold to, the problem is that your very belief that your belief is true is also determined. So you could be determined to believe atheism is true because a grapefruit is a square root of 2 and think that's logical, and there's no way to step outside the determinism.
That would not be, but it would not be logical. It would not be rational.
What if someone's determined to believe that it was? Then what?
Okay, so what would determine their belief is if it's following right. Let me rephrase this. So, like, I'm not a philosopher, but I enjoy logic. And what convinces me of different things is an argument following its logical structure.
Which requires free will.
No, it doesn't. Well, why would the structure of an argument require the logic is deterministic. The conclusion is yes, it is. It's determined.
By what mechanism does logic determine anything?
Well, it's determined by the premises. Like I just gave you one, right? So I gave you one, right? I said Washington D.C. is in the United States. I'm in Washington, D.C. What country am I in?
Right, U.S. But you're
Right.
you're conflating something that logically follows with being logically or being determined by the laws of logic. That's not how it works. Are you familiar with something called epiphenomenalism?
Epiphenomenalism. No.
Mm-hmm. It's the idea which, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're materialist, naturalist. Is that right? Or at least materialist.
Methodological naturalist.
You don't believe in the soul, correct?
I do not believe in the soul. No.
So everything is physical, right? If that's the case, then all your beliefs, as some would argue, you have people like Jaegwon Kim who makes this argument. This is an atheist philosopher of mine, that your beliefs wouldn't determine anything. They just kind of ride on top of things, but they don't actually determine stuff. It's still the physics and chemistry that's determining everything. So your beliefs don't play any role other than you have the sensation of this belief of something. So your beliefs aren't determining anything. There may be beliefs added on top of the deterministic mechanisms being used, but they're not determining anything.
No, it will be the logical structure that's determining it. I am following premises to its determined conclusion.
Let me put it this way.
I think you're putting the wagon before the horse, because like you're saying, like you have two premises that follow proper inference rules that gets to one conclusion, that's only one mandated conclusion, and you're saying that I would get there regardless of whether or not the syllogism was sound. And no, I think you're putting the wagon before the horse.
How would you define determinism?
So the determinism would be that all acts are determined. And I'm not necessarily I don't necessarily believe everything's determined. What I do negate is free will. There's a possibility of randomness, but that doesn't get you free will either.
So you're not a determinist, or you're not a hard determinist, or are you a compatibilist?
No, I'm not a compatibilist. I do not. Compatibilism is essentially just determinism from my view.
It's soft determinism.
What I'm saying is that, so you have two possibilities. You have determinism and you have randomness.
No, it's not. Those aren't the only two.
Randomness is just not determined.
Are you saying so? When you say determinism, let's start there. Define that for me.
So determinism is just the belief that any act is just determined by the prior state of affairs.
I mean, that would be determinism, be it hard determinism or soft determinism.
Right. And so what I'm saying is, I'm saying there could be some randomness. Like if you get to like the most fundamental part of reality, whatever that is, I don't see how it could have a cause. So it'd probably act in some random way. But what I'm saying is that doesn't get you free will. Randomness doesn't get you there.
So do you reject the law of causal closure?
The law of causal closure.
That every physical event must have a prior physical cause within a closed system?
I'm not sure if there could be a properly closed system.
Interesting. Because most atheists would hold to a closed system, and they bring up the law of causal closure, and it's an argument for determinism.
I mean, I don't know. Like you saying like you're talking about like some sort of like vector of space that cannot interact with another part.
Say it again, or rephrase that.
So,
I'm not sure.
Like, so you saying like it would be like, are you talking about like some sort of vector of space that could not interact with whatever is outside of it? So that it couldn't cause. There could never be any sort of causality, no causal relationship.
You're asking about the law of causal closure?
Yeah, that's what I was asking about.
No, so the law of causal closure, here's how most atheists would use the law of causal closure. The universe is a closed system, so you cannot have energy being created or destroyed or coming in from the system. Only things within the system are allowed as explanatory. Only within the system you have the explanatory positing of things explaining something else. So on that view, God isn't going to be used as an explanation. My soul won't be used as an explanation because it's a closed system. There's nothing from the outside feeding information or energy into it. There's nothing like that going on. Jaegwon Kim, he's also made this argument about the law of causal closure, that every physical event is going to have a prior physical cause. Let's start there. Do you agree with that?
No, I reject that.
So there can be non-physical causes.
No, I didn't say non-physical cause. So you asked if every physical event is going to have a physical cause,
A prior physical cause. Yeah.
a prior physical cause, and no, that I reject that. That's why I was kind of getting into like the fundamental nature of reality when we talk like quantum physics, like in the quantum fields, whatever is going on there, like it that seemed to be random.
But even if it's random, it's still caused by something, right?
No, it wouldn't be. If it's caused by something, then it's determined. Like if I kick a ball, right, the place that the ball lands is determined by the amount of force that I kicked it, the direction, the density of the air, the surface that it lands on, if it's flat, all kind of stuff. It's determined by a bunch of factors. It's also caused by those things. I think you could use cause and determine interchangeably, but there may be some part of reality that is causeless, that is random, and that would be non-determined. My
What's your
point
evidence
is,
for that?
so if there's a fundamental nature of reality, to say that it had a cause would be a contradiction, because whatever caused that thing would now be the most fundamental part.
I'm not sure I follow that.
Right. Okay. All right. So, like, think about like what caused you. Right. You can say your parents caused you. What caused your parents? Their parents, and you can keep going all the way back to the
God.
You could go back. You can go back to God. Sure.
Argument from contingency. Yeah.
So, but I mean, the problem. I wouldn't use God for this argument because you think God exists eternally. But what I'm saying, there could be something.
I still use God.
Okay, well, this could be something that is fundamental where it has no prior cause. It just is. That thing would behave randomly. It wouldn't be determined. Because if it was determined, then there was something that caused that.
You're conflating,
and that means it is no longer fundamental.
You're conflating determinism with a looser sense of determine. I determined to be on this live stream. Doesn't mean I was caused by something prior to myself.
Yeah, you definitely were caused by something prior to yourself.
Says
like, well, I mean, I could say it. I could prove it. Like I emailed you.
That caused me.
Yes, that caused you.
What's your evidence for that?
You responded to the email.
How's that evidence of causation?
Because you responded directly to a message that I sent.
Therefore, I said,
hey, Eric, you want to have a conversation? You said, sure. Yeah, like all of that. Those are all causes. But isn't just caused by that.
That's not determinism or causal determinism.
So I don't know what you said causal determinism. But remember, like I think cause and determine, you can use those words interchangeably. To say something caused something, to say that it determined it. Like if you were to push an object, the distance that the object goes is determined by the amount of force applied to it. That's also the cause of it, the amount of force that was applied to it.
So I think you're unintentionally conflating determinism with just to determine something or to cause something. I don't think they're necessarily interchangeable, but if we're talking determinism, it's the idea that all effects are necessarily caused by prior antecedents, right? They're sufficient to guarantee their effects, or that when applied to human beings, that's every action, thought, beliefs, and everything is determined.
So humans, I think, are determined as far as every act that happens in reality. I am not convinced of that, but it doesn't get you free will.
But you're determined to believe that, aren't you?
Would I be determined to believe?
You're determined to believe that, right?
Yes.
Whether it's rational or not, you're determined to believe it.
No. So, okay. So like I happen to have a mind that is guided by rationality. So
it's guided by non-rational processes, all rational processes.
No. They're rational processes. Like it's operated by the law. It's operated by the laws of physics. You can predict them. You know what the differential equation is?
If the laws of physics are causing your beliefs, that's all rational. Those are non-rational mechanisms determining your alleged rationality.
I think the laws of physics determine everything except.
So you're determinist.
Except the most fundamental. I said except the most fundamental thing.
That's fine. So let's just stick at the at one level. Like let's set aside the most fundamental. You're determinist at the base or at the surface level, if you will. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you're saying that your email caused me to respond.
Yep.
What's your argument for that? Because that's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow, because
What would you have responded to if I didn't email you?
that doesn't answer the question of free will.
No, no. So you were asking, how do I prove that your response to me was a cause? It's kind of like implied.
It's causally determined.
Well, right. So you responded to me.
I freely responded to, yeah.
You can use that. You can, sure. You freely responded to me. I could say colloquially, as in, like, it's not like I put a gun
literally
in your head.
I mean libertarianly freely respond to you.
No, yeah, libertarian free will, like, that's not a thing. Like,
let's talk about it.
Okay, sure.
So why don't you? How about this? I'll define libertarian free will, and then you tell me where I'm wrong. I would define libertarian free will as I'm the first mover of my will or actions. Nothing prior to me is causing me to act or will. I'm the first mover of my will or actions.
No, I don't even see how that'd be biblical. Like, I mean,
as a former Calvinist, I can see why you'd say that.
So you there's a lot of things that you didn't determine. You didn't determine when, where, and under what conditions you'd be born, what time period.
That's totally relevant to free will.
You said it's relevant to free will.
Totally relevant to free will.
It's relevant to the discussion of free will. What I'm saying is you didn't choose any of those things.
I didn't. I don't have to. The question is whether I'm the first mover of my will, not my existence. My will.
Okay, but your will is determined by character traits that you did not choose.
No, it's not.
Okay, so randomness. What is randomness to you? Is it non-determined?
There's a debate about that, especially at the quantum level. But something could be random and still determined. Randomness is just a reference to
those are
epistemically. Well, that's why I said there's a debate about it. I would say that randomness is just epistemically. We don't know the cause of it. Doesn't mean there is no cause.
No. So random would be there's no cause. Like, not epistemically. We're not saying that there's something that's so complicated we're going to say that it's random. No, I'm talking about something that is random. And there's two possibilities according to the law of excluded middle. You have determined, you have non-determined. Right? Now, free will is something that is neither.
Why can I be the determiner of my will?
Because you need to violate the law of reason. You need to violate excluded.
No, I just told you it's determined by me. What's wrong with that?
So you obviously wouldn't be the first determined, like, because you were born in what, like, well, when were you born? Like the late 80s, the 70s, or what you said?
87.
Okay, 87. Right. There was things that happened that you had no say over.
So let's clarify again. I'm the first mover of my will, not my existence. You're conflating those two things.
Your will is a product of traits that you have that you did not choose.
Those products are influences, not causes.
They are causes.
You're begging the question of determinism then. You're just assuming determinism and then saying it's like you're being a presuppositionalist.
No, I'm not. So remember how I was saying, can you give me an ontological difference between causing something and determining it?
Yeah. So determinism is there's a chain of causation that the next domino fallen, if you will, is necessitated by the prior. If I'm the first mover, then I am the first domino, so to speak, when it comes to my will, and nothing prior to me is causing it.
Okay. How did you get there if there are things that are happening? Like, so do you think there's this will that would do nothing, and then there's like another you somewhere, like the soul?
What do you mean this will that won't do nothing?
I'm not okay. So your will exists for reasons, doesn't it? Well, what are the reasons your will exists?
What are the reasons my will exists?
Yes.
Are we talking like within my worldview because God wanted to create a free creature?
Okay. I don't even see how God could create free will. I don't know how we're getting there.
You asked me why my will exists. I'm saying from my worldview, it's because God wanted free creatures.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we might be stuck here, but you seem to be violating excluded middle. I don't understand
Yep.
mechanistically. I don't understand what's happening here. You're
What's
saying
what's the violation by saying I determine my will? How is that
you're saying
violating?
you're the first mover.
Hmm.
Right. I don't know how you could be your first mover. Your will did not always exist. It
Right.
began to exist.
That's right.
And it began to exist for reasons that
Hmm.
you had no say over. So
Sure.
you weren't the first mover.
You're still again conflating first mover of my existence versus first mover of my will.
No,
You're
I'm saying
conflating that.
no, I'm not. Your
Yeah.
will is part of your existence. Your will exists for a reason. For
Be-
reasons you
And
didn't determine.
I would say not only are you conflating first mover of my existence versus my will, now you're also just begging the question for determinism. If God creates me, a soul with libertarian freedom, he creates my will. Now I choose what to do with that will freely, undetermined by prior causes. There's nothing contradictory about that.
I don't see how it's not. I mean, we
Show me how
might
it
be
is.
okay for the same reasons. Your will exists. You exist. Your will exists for reasons that had nothing to do with you.
That's still irrelevant as to whether or not I cause my
You
will
know,
or
it's relevant to whether or not you were the first one to initiate it. You
move
can't. They're the first mover. You're not the first mover.
of my will. Yes, of my existence of my will. No, God creates a soul, and I think human beings are souls that have wills, but we choose what to do with that will. It's like saying because something caused my hand to exist, therefore that thing is responsible for me punching someone in the face. You can have a cause of existence, my hand, versus punching someone in the face, the will, and those two don't have to be the same causes. God can be responsible for my
I'm
existence
not.
of my will and of my hand, but I, as a first mover, am responsible for what I do with that.
So I didn't say anything about responsibility here. So responsibility that doesn't go away with free will. But
Right,
what I'm saying is, I still don't see how you're saying like you're the first, what did you say, the first mover of it, the first
right. Because
cause of it.
I'm the one that causes what
But
I
you're not. But
will.
you're not the first. Like we might be
So
stuck
what
here.
causes me?
Other prior things that happened
Like what?
before you. Your parents had sex. Your parents met.
That's my
Your parents
existence.
exist.
That's my
That's, that's
existence.
also part of your will.
It's not. So when I punch someone in the face, are my parents responsible for that?
No,
Why not? They're responsible
because
for the existence of my hand, right?
yes, but it's your hand,
There you go. Good. Right. It's my hand. It's my
right?
will. Even if my existence was a
It's
byproduct
your
of another
will, but
human,
it's not. But it's not. But you're not the first. You're not the first initiator
you
of your
keep
will.
asserting that, and I keep clarifying. There's a
I,
difference between the existence of my will versus how I use my will.
I'm not just asserting that. Like I've demonstrated it because there are things that happen prior to your will.
Are you assuming that free will means nothing before
So
me happens?
no. So you're saying you're the
Well, then what's
first.
the issue?
You said you're the first mover of your will.
Hmm.
Okay. What chose to move your will? Was it your will?
It was me. A will is part of me. They're not two separate entities.
Okay, so it's moving itself.
Yeah, I move my will. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So and what made you move your will?
Now you're begging the question that
Was it
something prior to
was
me
it your
caused it.
will?
See how you're begging the question?
No, 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 no,
If
no, no, no,
if
no, no, no,
I'm the
no.
first,
If you do something, it's because you will to do it.
right?
So you're saying your willed made you will your will, or your will
No,
made you move
no,
your will.
no. You're assuming these are two different entities. So I am a soul. Within my soul, I have certain faculties or capacities. Part of my capacity is the freedom to will. I can do with my will what I want. I can will things. And if I'm telling you I'm the first mover, and you say, "Well, what caused you to move?" You're already strawmanning my view. If I'm the first mover, and you say, "Well, what came before that?" Well, I'm no longer the first mover, am I? So you cannot ask me what moved me if I'm telling you I'm the first mover in my view. Now you
You
can
would
disagree with it,
well, you can
but you can't
acknowledge.
just reassert your view as if it falsifies mine.
No, but you acknowledge that there was things prior to your will, and there was things that caused your will.
I
You
didn't.
say
Nope. I
you
didn't.
caused your
I did
will,
not
and
acknowledge
you
that
didn't
second part.
cause you.
I didn't cause my existence. Correct.
Somebody said in the chat you're muted. I'm not sure who.
Can you guys, if let me know if you can hear me. I don't think I'm muted.
Me either. I see the mic going up.
And
I
you
don't
can
know.
hear me.
Nobody else is saying that. Maybe he was talking about somebody else.
He was caused to say that without a choice. So yeah, I still don't see where you're. I'm not sure what you think the contradiction is, and I still think you're conflating two things.
Well,
what is a contradiction between something caused my existence, and as an existing thing, I have a soul with a will that I can choose to do what I want with it. Just like
the contradiction, that I was pointing to was that you have determined and then you have non-determined.
And I'm telling you,
non-determined is random.
Not necessarily. But if I determine what I will, it's determined.
Well, you're doing it. So you're breaking the causal chain at yourself.
Oh, am I? So when you see, you're once again begging the question that it's all dominoes.
No, I'm not begging the question. I'm not begging the question.
Can I at least explain how? Can I explain to you how? Okay. So on determinism, let's say you have 100 dominoes. On determinism, the 99th domino fell because of the 98th because of the 97th. I'm saying, no, it's not a chain of dominoes. I'm the first mover. I don't have to be caused by the domino prior to me. But then you're coming in and saying, but you were determined and you broke that line of dominoes. To break the line of dominoes already presupposes determinism. And I'm telling you, well, you can't just beg the question of determinism and say I'm breaking something that I don't hold to begin with.
Well, I'm saying you acknowledged the line of dominoes when you said that your existence has a cause. For one, you said you were caused by your parents and your will was caused by God. So there's other things that happen. God also has his own. God didn't cause your will?
He caused my existence. Part of what it means for me to exist as a human being is to have a will.
You're saying God did not cause your will?
He doesn't. No, he does not cause you to determine my will. So again, I'm not sure how else to clarify this other than to say God is responsible for my existence. My existence includes my will, but he's not responsible for the things that I will, just like God is responsible for my hand, but he's not responsible for what I do with my hand.
Okay, so where did your will come from, if not God?
The capacity?
No, your will, not the capacity for you to have a will.
Well, a will is a capacity.
No, it's not. I wouldn't say that. Like a will is like gives like your desire, like the capacity.
Nope, those are two different things. There are 5 states of consciousness: acts, desires. So there's thoughts, beliefs, desires, sensations, and acts of will or volition. So yes, my volition, my will, is a faculty of my soul. I really wish you would have studied some more theology and philosophy before you left the faith.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not saying how you're making any sense here. I mean,
go ahead.
But even if I grant the free will, I don't know what that does for my faith. Like I can, like
first you want to have bad arguments, I think, against the Christian worldview.
Well, what was the bad arguments against the Christian worldview? I don't recall giving any.
Well, we talked about the suffering first. Then we talked about.
But that's not against the Christian worldview. That was based on a specific type of God, based on the agreement of particular definitions of words. So I wasn't claiming to have an argument against the Christian worldview.
Against any God, right?
That's not. Well, so an argument against any God is not going to be a very good thing. And that'd be like an argument against anything.
No,
an argument against some undefined, broadly determined God, like that's not gonna be a good argument. Like you need to define what the properties are, and then we can see if those properties are contradictions, or we can see if whatever the effects of those properties, do we see that out in reality? That's how you would do that. But I wasn't claiming to have some sort of argument against the Christian worldview.
Well, everything. Well, we're talking about God in general, right? And what we established initially was, okay, even if I grant you that argument, that affects nothing the Christian God. But second, then we started talking about free will and then heaven and sin, because then your objection, it seemed, was, well, why can't God just create it all like this? where there's a state where no one sins. And I said, well, heaven's going to be like that. And you're like, oh, but we'll have free will. So then we start talking about free will in heaven and how it's coherent, because you said it doesn't make sense. I showed you how it did make sense. And we got to talking about free will. And all these seem to be objections against at least the worldview I'm presenting to you. And so, yeah, I think these are bad arguments against
think
systems.
I think like your worldview violates the law of excluded middle. I don't haven't see it. You said no, because you have determined, you have non-determined.
I determine what I will.
Right. And so you also were determined.
See, that begs the question.
No, it doesn't beg the question. No, hold on. When you say that you determine your will, or you have some sort of effect or control over your will, it's an acceptance that there is causality.
I'm not denying
you already accept that. So what I'm saying, but you for some reason are breaking some causal chain at yourself you can affect your will, and there's no explanation. I don't see how you got there, especially when you acknowledge there are things that happen before you existed that you have no control over.
So let me show you again where you're breaking the question. You said I break the chain. You're presupposing there's a chain to begin with.
No. We both accept there's a chain because you said you affected your will. You controlling your will, aren't you?
I don't believe so. Determinism is that everything's connected to a chain. So I don't hold to determinism.
So you think there's like disconnected links?
Sure. Yeah. If I'm the first mover in my will, absolutely.
Okay. That's a strange position.
No, that's just not determinism. Which again, that you're surprised to that. Just prove that you're presupposing determinism.
You're breaking the chain in arbitrary places.
Nope. You just proved that you're begging the question of determinism by saying, "Oh wait, you don't think there's a chain to everything?" That's determinism. To be surprised that just means that you just met someone who doesn't hold to determinism.
No. When I'm surprised that you have these disconnected links is what I'm saying. That is surprising.
If I don't hold to determinism, that shouldn't surprise you. No. Unless you think everyone's a determinist, that shouldn't surprise you.
No. So I said that I think your view is incoherent because it violates excluded middle.
And I
don't see how you. Yes, because you non-determined is not free will. Determined isn't free will.
So again, the definition of libertarian freedom that I presented to you is that I'm the first mover of my will or actions.
But you're clearly not.
Clearly not.
Yes.
Explain that.
Because you yourself had a cause. You said God didn't cause your will. I mean, I don't know that I don't know what to do with that, because your will exists.
Cause what I will. God doesn't cause what I will.
Okay. I mean, all right. I don't know how to respond to that. Sure, God doesn't cause your will. I agree. God doesn't cause your will as an atheist who doesn't believe in God. Can you tell me what's the problem in determinism? Like, what do I lose with determinism?
Rationality.
What makes something rational is that your reasoning followed particular rules.
How do you know that it's following particular rules?
Because you can break down an argument, just like even like right now, you're kind of demonstrating it, right? Which, when you want to know if my arguments are rational, if I'm being rational, you're examining the logic behind it. You're not trying to determine whether or not I'm a free agent.
So let's do this. Suppose I was able to control your mind, right? Thought experiment. And I cause you to believe that Christianity is true. Yeah. But then you ask yourself, well, why do I believe it's true? And I'm like, gosh, I got to come up with something on the fly. And I come up with the idea that because you're wearing brown shoes today, Christianity is true. And then I'm like, okay, but that doesn't seem like, and then I begin to determine that you believe that that's actually a logical step to make. And then all your beliefs, including your beliefs about your beliefs, are determined. So there's no way to step outside and assess that justification for your knowledge. You can't verify it. I'll give you one more quick illustration. I'll see what you think about it. Go ahead.
But I can verify it by just seeing if those regions conforms to rules of reason. So like there's rules and logic that you have these infer.
I understand that.
Rules. Right. So if my reasoning conforms to those rules and they're properly applied, then I am being rational. I am being reasonable. Whether or not I did that by my own free will or was determined is irrelevant. What matters is the structure. What matters is the rules that I was applying.
Let's try this analogy. Suppose I put a blindfold on you, and before you, I put a bucket of ping pong balls. 100 of those balls are white, and 10 of those balls are red. Let's suppose those red ping pong balls are false beliefs. And I put the bucket in front of you, but I have a blindfold on you, and I say, I want you to pick out only the false beliefs. How would you know whether or not you're picking out the red ones, the false ones? How would you know?
Well, I wouldn't know in that way.
Right. If you have the blindfold on, you wouldn't know. On determinism, that's what you're doing. You're
No,
saying
it's
these
not.
beliefs are true because everything you believe, including your beliefs about your beliefs, are determined. That's what I think you're seeming to miss.
No, because I can actually take the mask off and look at the balls. I can.
And now you have libertarian freedom.
No,
In that
no,
analogy, yeah.
no. It was the that could also be determined. Like I'm not leaving going to the free will from that. What I'm saying is, what makes something rational is the conformance to the rules of reason. So
And
if you have your premise like modus ponens, if A, B, A is true, therefore B. If I accept that A is true, then I also accept B is true. Whether I accepted the truth of B on my free will or was I causally determined, it's irrelevant. Long as the reasoning followed that structure. That is what makes something reasonable.
Could someone follow structure that is invalid and believe that they're being logical?
Yes, they sure can.
How do we convince them otherwise?
By showing them the errors.
What if they're determined to believe that what they believe has no errors?
If they are determined to believe that their belief has no errors, and it's like there is no other cause in the state of affairs that is going to alter that, then sure, then they're just going to believe that.
Okay,
they're not going to be rational.
Right. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But that doesn't prove your point, because what would make them rational is if their beliefs followed the structure.
That would make the cogs in the wheel, so to speak, rational. I don't know how you can have non-conscious things be rational.
It wouldn't not be conscious. It would just be determined.
When a rock falls because of the law of gravity, it's not obeying the laws of physics, right? Because rocks don't obey.
Well,
rationality has to do with sentience. I don't see how physical laws and dominoes falling are rational.
Rational. Okay, so to be colloquial, if we're going to say like if we're going to let's just limit rationality just to sentient creatures. Sentience is necessary. Is not sufficient. It has to follow those logical structures.
I didn't say it was sufficient.
Okay,
I think it's at least necessary.
Right. Sentience. Okay, sure. We agree. Sentience.
Right. So
how are you getting free will? Like how am I not rational because I lack free will? Like you looked at a valid argument. If I presented you an argument, it had like 20 premises, right? And you saw that I followed all my inference rules. I followed the inference rules for propositions and for predicates, like and everything, right? And then you saw that it went through that structure. You would say, AAA isn't rational because he doesn't have free will. Is that what you would say?
I would say without free will, you're not going to be able to justify any belief, nor step outside your determined beliefs to know whether or not your determined beliefs are true. You're just determined to believe that your determined beliefs are true and rational, even if they're not.
The justification would be in the syllogism showing that I followed the proper inference rules.
Do you think
not that I have free will? I'm sorry.
Let's here's a point of agreement, I think. Would you agree with me that presuppositional apologetics is not very rational, let's say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, suppose there was no free will, as you believe. Let's say you and I are talking to a presuppositionalist, and they are determined to believe that the logic they're using is 100% rational. Do you see how they would argue, just like you are, no, but it is rational because of this? But if you're not determined to believe that that those beliefs are rational, whether it is or not is irrelevant, because a rationality is also determined. Or if, let's say, you're determined to believe that anybody with a yellow hat tells the truth, and you believe atheism is true. Why? Because this guy with the yellow hat told me. And you're like, well, no, it logically follows with the yellow hat, what he says is true. You are determined to believe that, whether it is true or not.
Sure.
And that's okay. So then you're losing justification and rationality.
No, so what justifies?
And real quick, before you move on, because I just look at the time. If anyone has any questions for Tribolette or myself, send them in. Just use the word question in all caps before you send in the question, and then of course any super chats, I'll jump to those first. All right, go ahead, Tribolette.
When I say, so what justifies the belief in any proposition is whether it conforms to the rules of logic. Now, if you're saying, what if somebody, like you talked about the presuppositionalist, what if he's determined to accept his position no matter what, even in the face of logic? Then if he is determined to accept that, then he is determined to be irrational. If someone is determined to be rational, then they are determined to be rational.
Well, I think,
but the free will has nothing to do with it. What rationality is based on those rules.
Rationality requires deliberation, right? It requires that you are able to, I would say, choose between some options and weigh out the evidence. But if all that is done for you, I say that's what's removing the rationality. Whether your beliefs are true or not, or whether your beliefs to a person with free will would be rational, is a different question. When I type in let me ask you, is my calculator rational, would you say?
So we agreed earlier.
Setting aside consciousness.
Okay, then sure, yeah. I mean, if it's following that structure, like you get in advanced calculator, it can break down his work and give you a proof how it got that answer. Then yeah, that would be rational.
So a calculator, you're saying, would be rational?
Yes, but if you use like a magic 8-ball and you shook it, and he asked it a question and you shook it, no, that's not rational. It's just guess. But the calculator is determined based on mathematical rules. That is going to be rational.
So let's suppose that this calculator was made by someone who's terrible at math. Mm-hmm. Right?
Would it matter? The question is, I don't care if the person who made it is terrible at math. The question is, does the calculator follow those mathematical rules? If it does, it is rational. If it does not, it is irrational. Regardless of the answer. If it gets the answer right by accident, it's not being rational.
Now, how would something that wouldn't be able to get outside its deterministic programming, if you will, know whether or not it's being rational?
So, the calculator wouldn't know that it's being rational. The calculator isn't sentient.
Let's say it is.
However, the fact that the calculator cannot leave a logical structure of those mathematical axioms is how you can be more certain that it is rational.
And with the magic 8-ball, you said that's not rational because it's random.
Yeah, because it's not following the structure. It's just you're shaking it and it's random, colloquially speaking, right?
But you say that's also determined, right?
But that's why I said colloquially speaking, right? You can say the magic 8-ball is determined by the amount of force that was applied to it in the liquid inside, all that kind of stuff. I'm saying colloquially, it's not based on some sort of mathematical axiom that the calculator would follow. It is not considering any sort of rules in mathematics when getting your answer. You're like, what's 1 + 1? That's not being rational.
So I'd say if I'm programming a calculator and it makes a mistake, the calculator didn't make the mistake, I did.
Sure.
Okay, so going back to the magic 8-ball, if you're talking about determining by the force and all this stuff, could a magic 8-ball get lucky that I'm just shaking it the right way and I ask it a question and it actually gives the right answer? Right.
Sure could.
But note, these are non-rational processes, right? Me shaking it is not a rational process, correct?
No.
Right. Now, if you're a domino in a line of dominoes, whatever comes before that causes your belief, I would say is analogous to shaking that magic 8-ball. It's not a rational process, but it causes you to believe something.
Why wouldn't rules of reason be part of the process?
Because they're not something physical that causes stuff. Logic isn't
No, 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 no. It's
causative.
so no, no. So the logic are descriptions of how I should think, and I'm trying to follow that process. That is affecting the conclusion that I'm going to, and that's affecting my methodology that I'm using to get to the right answer. Well, why can't that also be part of the cause?
Because you're assuming that you're choosing.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not assuming that at all. What I'm saying is the rules that I learn in philosophy, in any particular field that I'm in, if I'm applying those rules, that has an effect on the conclusion that I'll come to.
And I go back to, just like I'm shaking the magic 8 ball. These are non-rational processes causing a belief. Now make your brain the magic 8 ball and make all the laws of physics and everything else the shaking. You have the same problem.
No, because no, no, no. So
let me just repeat real quick. If anybody has questions, I'm looking. I don't see any off the real quick, but I'll scan through again. And if not, that's cool too. Go ahead.
I would say so. Like back. So with the calculator is following these mathematical axioms that do not change. So every time it's going to give you the same answer. The magic 8 ball might or may not. That's because it's not following a determined process.
I'll let you have the last word on that.
Okay.
Here's a question. Process can be considered rational or irrational. It is a functional distinction. I don't know if that was to me or you. This is from Corey. I actually had a discussion with Corey maybe a month or two ago on my channel. But what are your thoughts on this?
A process can be considered. I mean, sure. I mean, like I think the calculator follows a process, and shaking a magic 8 ball will both be a process. The difference is the magic 8 ball is irrational because it's not following determined rules, whereas the calculator is following determined rules.
And I'm looking for. There was a question that I just saw and then it moved because I think a lot of people commented it at once. Gosh, Renee, I can't find it. I was too slow. Let's see. Let me just go back down from the beginning. Somebody asked me a question about something. I think it was something with God. Let me just then action. Maybe it's this one. Let's try it. Do you agree that if God's knowing an action necessarily causes or determines the action, only then is our action not free? You need to show how God knowing is necessarily causes it. Maybe he was. He's responding to someone else. Here it is. This is the one I was looking for. Eric, do you believe in divine simplicity? Why or why not? Yes, but not in a Thomistic sense. I don't believe in a Thomistic, what I would say like a radical sense of simplicity. Something is simple if it has no separable parts. But something can have parts, but they're just inseparable parts. So I would say I am a soul and I am simple because I'm not composed of parts that are separable. It's not like my mind is a part of my soul, but I can't take my mind and throw it across the room, right? My mind is an inseparable part of me. So I am simple in the sense that I am not put together piece by piece. That's not to say being simple doesn't mean that there are no parts and distinctions. I still have parts and distinctions. I don't know if you have any thoughts on simplicity.
Oh no, but I was about to ask if you accept the divine simplicity. Like, in my understanding, that's belief that like God is of one substance, but you had changed I guess like your understanding of that, meaning like, so he could there could be multiple parts, but they're essential parts. They're inextricably intertwined. That's how you could accept something like the Trinity, right?
Yeah, I suppose you can go there. But I think you said I was changing the definition.
Well, I will not change. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't trying to straw man you. I mean, like,
no, I get it.
Yeah, you gave what you mean by the term when you say you accept divine simplicity. You explaining what you meant by that term. That's
and that's what the term means. I think some people, Thomas, in fact, so before the show we're talking about LDS. Mm-hmm. You know, I just got back from Utah a couple weeks ago. And most LDS assume that if you're not LDS and you're Christian, you're automatically a Calvinist. And they push back on stuff like simplicity because I think all non-LDS people who are Christians kind of believe the same. And I have to remind them, not everyone's a Calvinist or a Lutheran or holds to certain aspects of simplicity defined. And so, yeah, the definition is just something that doesn't have separable parts is essentially simplicity. Um, so I think it's interesting though that again you do seem to have these preconceived notions of something that, as you admitted, and this is not a dig, that you weren't taught to think critically about or think through, and my heart breaks for that.
Well, it don't need to break anymore because like now I do think critically.
Well,
I
now
mean,
it breaks
I
even
mean,
more because you've taken that now just to you've applied your presuppositionalism just to atheism, and I think there are still
next time when we talk, let's do this. I like to do this again because like I would say like I don't accept those. When you said presupposition, I have what I will call axioms because a presupposition to me is something that you just presuppose and you can just presuppose anything. There are axioms that I accept and I separate those because an axiom is something that I need in order to move forward. Like if this thing isn't true, I I can no longer form coherent thoughts. That's what I would say that I have.
and that's what a precept would say too.
Well, well,
So you're still presuppositionalism.
they'll say that, but then it doesn't really make any sense. Like they'll say like if you have like you can't form truth statements if there's no God, which is absurd. Sure, you
but
can.
no, but the presuppositionalism is still there. Is what I'm saying. It's almost like using the same methodology, but just for atheism.
No, I am not. So I there are things that I accept as axioms because
That's what a precept would say. That's
no,
what a precept would say. Yep, axioms.
well, yeah, no, they won't say that. They'll say they'll say presupposition.
Well, but by that they mean axioms. Here's another question. I don't know who it's to. I struggle with understanding God in the sense of a person, since he is outside of time, and focusing in on a moment of time would be like an infinite zoom. Let me simply ask, does God think? So I'm guessing this question is to me. So a few things. One, I would not argue God is outside of time. I would say that God is in time. I would say now logically prior to creation, yes, God was timeless, but then he creates time and he's now part of it. He's acting within time. Time would be a succession of events, a before and after kind of thing. But I don't see what the concept of him being a person, how that's relevant to time. And yes, God thinks, and as you're rightly, I would assume, already alluding to that thinking requires time. And that's one reason I would say, yeah, God is in time. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I know it's to me, but you're welcome to share.
Yeah, I don't see how God could act prior to time.
Who said he was acting?
Well, you say like he created time,
right?
So that would be an act, but that's happened prior to time.
Who said it was prior to time?
Because so he did an act. Like time didn't always exist, right?
Right.
But God always existed, right? Yep. So there was some point where God existed, and then there was no time, and then time happened because of something God did. I'm calling that an act.
Why couldn't it be simultaneous with the cause?
Because time isn't eternal with God.
Right, but God can act and simultaneously that act be the cause of time. So there's no act prior to time.
Okay, so you're saying like the cause can happen simultaneously with the act, right? Okay, but his act isn't simultaneous with God. There was a point where God existed and there was no act.
Right. I'm agreeing with you. Okay. And so the moment of action was also the moment of creation of time.
Well, that implies time because there was a point when God did not act and then he acted.
Yes, absolutely. What's the issue?
Because that implies time.
So
how long was God existing before the act of creating time?
No, that's a category fallacy because you're asking a temporal question where there is no time.
Right. So if God exists, it's necessarily going to be temporal.
Says who?
Because to say that it's without time, you're saying God at no time did God exist.
I'm saying God did not exist in time, right?
So at no time did God exist. Like to say that something
time now.
To say that something exists for zero time, you're saying it doesn't exist.
That's you keep making a lot of assertions.
Okay.
Presuppositions or axioms, however you want to call them. Okay. You're still just assuming something.
No, it's not. It's not an assumption. It's based on a definition of time. Like to say that something exists for zero. something that exists for zero time. Did it exist?
Yeah, it could exist outside of time.
It's to exist for no time.
You're assuming that time's required for existence.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Existence is going to be temporal.
Says
So
who?
because God
More
exists eternal.
presuppositions and
No,
axioms.
it's based on the definitions. Like I don't.
Where in the definition of time does it say that everything that exists must be in time?
So when we talk about something existing, so there was some point where God was like in holy, I guess, matrimony with Himself, with the Trinity, and He existed at some point, and then later He creates stuff, including time. That implies time.
God creating time implies time, yes.
No, so for the act of Him creating time.
Mm-hmm.
So God speaks it into existence or whatever. That implies time. Like you're saying,
right. How when He creates time,
mm-hmm.
that's the first moment in time.
It wouldn't be the
no
first
act. There's no act.
Well, I said that wouldn't be the first moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
But there were moments prior. That's where God
says who?
Based on the definition of time. how would something exist for no time?
Oh, easily. So if you think about people who believe in universals or abstract objects, like let's say numbers, if the number 2 exists, it exists timelessly. There's no time in which it exists or begins to exist. It would be a necessary thing that exists.
I would no. So 2 doesn't exist, especially if it's an abstract.
Listen to what I'm saying here. I'm not asking if you believe this. You're acting as if the concept is incoherent by definition when I'm telling you there are a number of philosophers all around the world, which if I'm not mistaken might be the majority of you, who are Platonists, let's say, and believe things like numbers exist and they exist outside of time. So unless you're the only one that sees this as incoherent, throughout the history of philosophy, many philosophers have believed in abstract objects existing timelessly.
So like we're appealing to authority because
no.
Well, that's what you said. that sounds like
we're not authority. No, I think you're appealing. If we're going to go that route, then you'd be appealing to your own authority.
No, I'm appealing to the definition.
What definition? Right, so you're telling me that
you said it was abstract.
You're saying that you have found something in the definition that for thousands of years philosophers have missed.
Well, for two is a description of things that exist.
No, the number 2 as an abstract object.
No, I was disagree that number 2 is a.
I know you do, but I'm telling you, throughout the history of humanity, there are philosophers who hold to the existence of abstract objects. Sure. And they would and even you don't have to hold to the existence of abstract objects to agree and acknowledge that they would exist timelessly if they did.
Okay. Right. We'll just agree to disagree. When you say exist, that's the Venus time, but
which begs a question. Yeah. But I'll let you. I don't see any more unless I missed it. I don't see any more questions. I see people talking to each other, which is fine. I like to let my guests have the last word. And before letting you go, would you be okay if I prayed to end the stream?
Well, I don't like the idea of just entertaining that. I don't think it's a good thing to do. But you know what? I'm a guest in your house. You were gracious enough to to have me on, and you've treated me well. It was kindly. Sure, I'll let you pray, and I appreciate the thought.
Yeah, I appreciate you being cool with it. So yeah, I'll let you have the last word if you want to just kind of wrap up on some stuff, and then I'll just close us out.
Now That's Debatable. YouTube channel. Check me out. We have conversations, not necessarily just about God, but just about things in general. Subscribe or don't, whatever. That's it.
All right, cool. Well, thank you again, Tribolette. I always have to look how to pronounce the name, how I wrote it down. No, thanks for coming on. Man, I hope you get more into whether you agree with theology or not, at least get an accurate view of theology and what Christians believe, and just kind of a little bit more philosophy under your belt. Now, I don't say that as a jab; we're all learning, right? But I do think that you're kind of carrying over some presuppositions or axioms that I think aren't justified. But I appreciate you coming on and being willing to talk and have these discussions. Very much so. Thank you also, everybody, for watching. I'm just going to say a quick prayer and then we'll bounce. Thank you, Lord, for this time and day that you've given us. I thank you for Tribolette. I thank you for his mind that he is asking these questions, and I pray that he's seeking, Lord. I don't know where he's at now. We just had just a discuss for just a few moments in time, if you will. But Lord, I pray you reveal yourself to him, that you would help him to ask the right questions, that he would continue to seek, and that you would bring more people, bring conviction to his life, into his mind, to his heart. And I pray you will be with him and his family, Lord. I thank you for his family, his wife, his kids. I know he shared with me that his wife is a believer. Lord, I pray that you would even use her, Lord, to bring him back to you. But overall, be with him, protect him, especially as he travels. I know he's got some travel coming up. Lord, keep him safe, keep him protected, and be with his family while he's gone. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on with me.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it, man.
All right.
I have a good brother.
You too. All right. Thank you, guys.